a prehistoric monster suddenly descended upon the city center. Everyone stopped to watch. However, the monster began a frenzy of slaughter. Soldiers raised their rifles and fought back. Unfortunately, the monster had thick and tough skin. Its defense value was off the charts. The soldiers were forced to flee in disarray. The reason this monster came to Earth was actually to lay eggs and reproduce. Upon realizing this, humans launched a missile. The missile directly knocked down the monster, but inside its stomach, it was hiding millions of monster eggs. These eggs were instantly scattered across the land. In the control room, Victor and Toyne were working. They were employees of a deep-sea excavation company. They were carefully piloting an unmanned submarine. They were conducting underwater exploration. Toyne was impatient and wanted to obtain samples quickly, but Victor was an honest person. He wouldn't dare deviate from his duties. He kindly advised Toyne not to act alone. They must obtain a survey permit first. Toyne saw Victor's timid appearance and confidently said, applying for permits would waste too much time. They could easily accomplish the task. Why should they waste time? The charm tactic was still effective on Victor. Victor reluctantly nodded and agreed with Toyne. Just when the two of them were enthusiastically operating the submarine, an unidentified tentacle suddenly appeared. Without hesitation, it raised its hand and slapped, directly smashing their unmanned submarine with one slap. Signal interrupted. Looking at the pitch-black monitor, the two of them were frightened. They won't be able to afford it even if they take their lives. They should quickly report to their supervisor. Meanwhile, their supervisor, our protagonist William, was enthusiastically live-streaming. He went from his office to the control room. William proudly showcased his company. At that moment, he was live-streaming the company's unmanned submarine. Yet his live stream suddenly lost signal. This mistake of his made everyone think his company was going to close down. William was about to become a laughingstock. He decided to go to the incident area to assess the situation. Before William boarded the ship, he encountered someone who claimed to be a marine investigator named Winnie. Naturally, William didn't want to take him along, but when he heard that his company might be sealed off, and they might even face confiscation of their equipment, William immediately put on a smile. He wore a smile on his face as he brought the other person aboard the ship. They gathered as a group of 4 like this. They set off towards the target area. They monitored through instruments and determined the location where the unmanned submarine had encountered trouble. Upon seeing the specific location, he put on his gear and was about to dive in. Honest person Victor stepped forward and said, "Since the situation is unknown, shouldn't we use the unmanned submarine?" As the supervisor, William insisted on boarding the submarine and setting off. The 4 individuals had clear roles. They had someone for piloting and someone for exploration. They seemed like a live-action version of an underwater exploration team. They descended underwater in the submarine. They chatted and laughed along the way. At this moment, Toyne, who was in charge of scanning, was shocked to discover that the entire seabed had vanished. An unnoticed volcano had appeared. Upon hearing about the new discovery, William became instantly excited. Not only did he not become cautious, but he insisted on going closer to take pictures and document. In this situation, I have to admire William's brave actions, but he will surely pay the price for recklessness. Sure enough, as the submarine turned on its lights, the cabin started shaking violently. They awakened an underwater monster. The monster extended its enormous tentacles. The underwater team was stunned as they watched through the monitors. After the monster delivered a heavy tail strike to the submarine, it surfaced. The sea monster was massive. Before everyone could recover from the shock, they and the submarine were brought onto the monster. The submarine was unable to navigate, and the oxygen inside the submarine was running out. This meant that, if they didn't escape quickly, they would either suffocate or be crushed to death. William saw that things were going badly. He immediately called the Navy to report the sea monster situation. He requested support. The Navy also acted swiftly, and it didn't take long for them to send fighter jets and warships. Despite their heavy missile bombardment, the missiles only exploded on the monster's body, and the sea monster leaked a lot of magma, but remained unharmed. William stood at the cabin door and witnessed everything. He quickly realized that the situation was dire. The monster's blood was magma, which means that the monster is the unnoticed volcano, and the yacht was so close to the monster and the magma. Any slight mistake could cost them their lives. They couldn't wait for rescue and had to rely on themselves. At a critical moment, William ordered Victor to release the submarine's stored fresh water, start the engine, generate thrust to allow the submarine to sail into the open sea using the water current. As everyone breathed a sigh of relief, the Navy's military submarine was firing torpedoes at the monster. The fighter jets were ineffective, not to mention small-scale underwater bombs. The provoked monster swung one of its tentacles and instantly split the military submarine in 2. The team hurriedly took cover as the battlefield became filled with artillery fire. Finally, they managed to escape the combat zone. After a thrilling but safe operation, The group safely returned to the shore. After coming ashore, the team split into 2 groups. Winnie boarded a helicopter as she went to find her former teacher. Her teacher had always believed in the existence of monsters. After arriving at her teacher's residence, before they could exchange greetings, Winnie stated the purpose of this trip, and the teacher didn't waste any time either. She pulled out a record book and told Winnie that this monster is called Tengu. It dwells in the Earth's core, covering the entire core with its presence. As for why it has astonishing combat power, it's because they convert the stored volcanic material, turning it into weapons. In other words, its power comes from the Earth's core, and human power is simply unable to control it. The only way for humans to eliminate the monster is to become another monster, the living mountain. On the other side, the other 3 individuals are using a backup unmanned submarine, investigating the specific details of the monster. The submarine has already reached a certain depth, and they are now able to conduct scans. But William, sticking to his consistent principle of going it alone, insists on getting closer. Victor opposes once again, explaining that if the unmanned submarine continues forward, it will face a situation where it cannot be retrieved. Victor persuades earnestly over and over again, but William simply doesn't listen. Helpless, Victor can only follow William's orders, and the submarine continues forward. They gradually grasp the internal structure of the monster, which is incredibly tough all over, except for one area that appears relatively soft. Yet when they fire a shell at it, the monster remains completely unaffected. They realize that the monster may be heading towards the Taupo volcano, and if the volcano erupts there, the consequences will be unimaginable. William makes a phone call to the military, desperately describing the severity of the situation to them. When the military on the other end of the line receives the news, they do not take immediate action. Instead, they immediately questioned William about how he knew. After hanging up the phone, he began researching methods to eliminate the monster, based on the information they currently have. The sea monster contains explosive material, essentially a reverse volcano. If they can place the necessary material inside the sea monster and detonate it, if they do so, would they be able to destroy the sea monster? Would they be able to eliminate the sea monster? William called the Navy again, and explained his idea to the Navy. However, the Navy disregarded William's words, as they believed William was only seeking attention. Realizing this path was not viable, William once again engaged his clever mind, and started devising a battle plan to defeat the monster. William attached a bomb to a drone, controlled the drone to approach the monster, and then dropped the bomb into its mouth. On the other side, the Navy was conducting radar scans, but William's drone suddenly intruded, disrupting the military's plans directly. The Navy, seeing it was this person causing trouble again, ordered the arrest of William and the others. Just a second before the 3 individuals were captured by the Navy, William raised his hand, controlling the drone to enter the monster's body, and detonated the bomb. The sea monster's body was flipped over by the explosion, and then the sea monster began to scatter numerous eggs in all directions. The giant eggs landed on the land. Surprisingly, there were people who joined the fun, and took photos with their phones. The next moment, the monster eggs unexpectedly cracked open, hatching a group of small monsters, flapping their wings, and scaring away the onlookers with their fire breathing. On the other side, William and the others were sitting in a transport vehicle, heading towards the command center. On the way, they saw giant eggs with massive sizes, and several soldiers were aiming their guns at them seriously. Just as everyone was about to relax their guard, a monster broke out of one of the eggs. The monster attacked the soldiers. William quickly led the others to evade, and they managed to escape into a tunnel. Just as they were catching their breath, the monster caught up to them, and instantly burned Victor to death with its fire breathing. William and Toyn didn't have time to grieve. They frantically fled and soon reunited with the professor. The professor briefed them on the origin of the monster. The professor told William that if they wanted to eliminate the monster, only its natural enemy, the living mountain, could confront it. But the living mountain had been in a dormant state, and only by dripping the monster's blood into its eyes could they awaken it. However, they couldn't approach the monster's body at the moment. At a critical moment, William had a brilliant idea. The giant eggs had a large amount of monster blood, and conveniently, there was an unhatched giant egg nearby. Therefore, they used a helicopter to tow the giant egg to Monster Island. As the shell of the giant egg was extremely sturdy, they came up with the idea of thermal expansion and contraction. They placed the giant egg near the volcano, intending to rapidly increase its temperature. Then, they quickly submerged it in seawater to cool it down for hatching. The method indeed worked, but the hatching process was exceptionally rapid. Before the helicopter could reach the shore, the eggshell suddenly cracked open, and a monstrous bird swooped down, attacking them. Several people hid inside a cave, while the monstrous bird chased them, and continuously spewed out lava. The scorching lava directly awakened the living mountain, as it was indeed the natural enemy of fire. As soon as it appeared, it emitted a circle of blue light, causing all the monstrous birds surrounding the living mountain to instantly fall to the ground. Enraged by seeing its offspring being bullied, the monster flapped its enormous wings, swiftly positioning itself behind the living mountain. It tightly grips the living mountain with just one entanglement. Caught off guard by the sudden attack, the unprepared living mountain quickly fell to the ground. The professor, who was watching the battle between the two monsters, realized that the living mountain was still in a semi-dormant state. They had to inject the blood into the living mountain's eyes to fully awaken it. After the professor finished speaking, she found a wooden stick and mixed the blood of the monstrous bird on the stick. She handed it to William, and he used a bow to shoot the blood into the living mountain. Sure enough, the living mountain instantly became energized, and the energized living mountain exploded, eliminating the monster. Humans solved the monster problem, and human civilization was no longer under threat. William also proposed that he would continue researching with the professor. The mentor then said, "There are still countless sea monsters sleeping in the world, having both enemies and friends, and the entire Earth is actually a gigantic island of monsters." At the end of the movie, this fantasy-filled CG movie seems to have a sequel in the works. I'm really looking forward to the movie sequel. What new heights can be achieved? If you enjoy my channel, please consider subscribing to me.